Welcome back to Book Break. In this video, I'm going to do a deep dive into book aesthetics. So you may have heard people online, particularly on BookTok, but also on BookTube and Bookstagram, talking about their favourite book aesthetics. But what does that mean? This is actually not a totally new trend, not a totally new way of talking about books and media. On social media platforms like Tumblr, it's actually been years in the making. People cultivating their favourite aesthetics, their favourite vibes, and then curating a list of music and movies and books that fit those themes. And now there are just hundreds. So I've picked just a few of the most popular aesthetics you might hear people talking about. I'm going to go through and give you some examples of books in each one and also tell you what they mean. But honestly, at this point, there are just endless combinations of these that people use. The most famous aesthetic that I'm sure you would have heard people talking about in a book context is dark academia. So this uses visuals from upper class 19th century European culture and revolves around classic literature and self-discovery and a general passion for and pursuit of learning. Dark academia books make schools a place of mystery and curiosity. The books also often have themes of murder and danger and crime. Kind of the ultimate dark academia book is The Secret History by Donna Tartt, and then the next generation of books like that, which include If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. So both of those are murder mysteries that take place at university, particular societies that have banded together because of their passion for a specialist subject. More recently, something like The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake, which has been massive on TikTok, that's a magical dark academia. It revolves around a secret society of magicians. Another huge aesthetic you might hear people talking about is cottagecore. So this is a kind of romanticised, nostalgic version of Western farming life, centred around themes of harmony with nature. Interestingly, cottagecore seems to be particularly popular within sapphic online spaces, and you'll also find it on Tumblr even more so than Instagram or TikTok. The kind of books that get mentioned in this context are anything from The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett to Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery, or more recently graphic novels like Pilo of the Woods by Mai Nguyen. And then there's Dreamcore, which, as the name suggests, revolves around dreams. So Dreamcore books can be somewhat fantastical, or they can be completely surreal. Either way, you'll find they're very ethereal. You'll get a lot of Dreamcore writing on sites like Wattpad. In popular literature, The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern would be Dreamcore, or definitely Neil Gaiman's books or TJ Klune's books. Dreamcore then overlaps quite a lot with lo-fi, which is a largely music-centered aesthetic that uses muted tones and mundane imagery. It's supposed to kind of inspire you to stop and take notice of the moment that you're in. And Haruki Murakami's books lend themselves pretty well to the lo-fi aesthetic. But as I said, there's a big overlap with Dreamcore there. Then there's Americana. This one is pretty obvious, revolves around all things seen as American, and usually in quite a nostalgic and wholesome way. But there is a huge range of things that can be considered Americana. So the Little House on the Prairie books by Laura Ingalls Wilder, those would be considered Americana, but so would Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys. Or you also get books like History of Wolves or An American Marriage that kind of tap into the myths of Americana and subvert them. Then you get aesthetics with great names like Bibliopunk. So this one is similar-ish to dark academia in that it revolves around a love of reading and knowledge, but it's very much at the other end of the scale because it really is about valuing freedom of information and equality in education rather than the exclusive secret societies of the dark academia world. So because of this, there aren't really specific books that fit into the Bibliopunk aesthetic because it's about a love of reading in general, but you could definitely say that books with left-wing ideals would fit this aesthetic. And in general, you might see Bibliopunk tags used on posts that show off a kind of chaotic vibe, so books with loads of handwritten annotations or arranged on DIY shelves. The next one I discovered made me laugh. There is an aesthetic called Mushroomcore, which is just the aesthetic of mushrooms. So this can be a bit magical, as mushrooms are associated with some spiritual practices or thought to be associated with the underworld. It can also be about rapid growth and good fortune, or it can literally just be about mushrooms. There is a non-fiction book called Entangled Life that is becoming huge at the moment that is really just all about mushrooms. And I'll just mention one more from the honestly infinite list. Southern Gothic is a term that you may be very familiar with in a different context. So this is a genre that originated in 19th and 20th century literature, particularly by Southern authors criticising the racism and classism of their society. But Southern Gothic as an aesthetic had a resurgence on Tumblr in the 2010s with kind of Gothic imagery of decay used as a metaphor for lack of progress or the fall of society. You might see pictures of abandoned buildings like malls or gas stations, or billboards with terrifying evangelical messages printed on them, or even some supernatural or ritualistic objects like candles and Ouija boards. And today, people who enjoy the Southern Gothic aesthetic might be drawn to classic books like Beloved by Toni Morrison, or more recent books like Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, or Lovecraft Country by Matt Ruff. And there are just so many more, so I would love to hear in the comments below, what are your favourite book aesthetics and what does that mean to you? I will also link here to a video I made a while ago on the books and the trends that are big on BookTok, because I talked a little bit more about aesthetics in that video as well. So do click through and have a watch, leave a comment below with your recommendations, and I'll see you next time.